Hugh Jackman has had multiple basal cell carcinomas removed, a type of skin cancer caused by long-term UV exposure. These cancers often start off as small, easy-to-miss spots, but can slowly grow deeper into surrounding tissue if left untreated, in some cases eroding skin and underlying structures. His repeated diagnoses suggest damage that continues to surface years after the initial exposure. While rarely fatal, basal cell carcinoma can quietly develop, recur, and progressively invade tissue, making it more serious than most people realize. He's since used his experience to warn others about the dangers of UV exposure, regularly urging people to wear sunscreen and get their skin checked. In 2004 in South Africa, trophy hunter Ryan Naud, who ran Pro Hunt Africa and was known for killing endangered animals, was found dead beside his broken-down truck on a remote road. His vehicle had overheated, leaving him stranded and alone. When police arrived, he was lying next to the truck with multiple gunshot wounds, suggesting he had been approached at close range and executed. There were no clear signs of a struggle, and his belongings were left behind, making the motive unclear. Many speculate the killing was retaliatory due to his work killing protected wildlife, but no suspects were ever identified, and the case remains unsolved. This was the moment an airport security worker in the Philippines swallowed $300 in cash to avoid being arrested. The money had allegedly been taken from a passenger's bag during a routine screening, and when the traveler reported it missing, airport staff confronted the employee as cameras were rolling. Her bizarre attempt to hide the evidence quickly went viral online, prompting officials to suspend her from duty while an investigation moved forward. Here's the before and after of an imperial crown left mangled following the 2025 Louvre heist, where thieves forced it through a narrow slit cut into its reinforced display case, crushing the delicate gold frame as they pulled it free. During the escape, the damaged crown was dropped just outside of the museum and quickly recovered by authorities, though it had been badly deformed from being forced out and striking the ground. The Louvre has since formed a restoration committee and begun seeking proposals to fix it, with early estimates starting around $50,000, though officials say the real cost will come from the painstaking hours of delicate repair needed to rebuild the 170-year-old piece. Just yesterday, on April 19, 2026, in Shreveport, Louisiana, 31-year-old Army National Guard veteran Shamar Elkins killed 8 children, 7 of them his own, after a domestic dispute with his wife, who he was in the process of separating from. Just hours before the attack, he'd been posting photos online, including one about spending time with his daughter, and nothing about it suggested anything was wrong or that something horrific was about to happen. Early that morning, he shot his wife first, who survived, and then went to another home where the children were and killed all 8 of them. Several were shot while asleep in their beds, and at least one child tried to escape but was still killed. The victims ranged from very young children to preteens. In the time leading up to it, family members said he'd been dealing with mental health struggles and what they described as dark thoughts. He also had a prior firearm-related arrest in 2019, but no clear single motive has been confirmed beyond the domestic situation escalating. Afterward, he fled the scene, carjacked a vehicle, and led police on a chase before being shot and killed by 2 officers. 2 adults survived the shooting with critical injuries, and the killings became one of the deadliest mass shootings involving children in recent U.S. history. Moments before tragedy, passenger Dave Halley snapped a photo of his wife Kim and their 4-year-old daughter Megan, smiling from their seats on Malaysian Airlines flight MH17, unaware it would be their final picture. Minutes after takeoff, the plane was struck by a Russian missile at 33,000 feet, exploding mid-air and scattering wreckage and bodies across miles of Ukrainian farmland. Every one of the 298 passengers and crew was killed instantly. Some of their belongings and passports later found among the debris of what investigators called one of the most awful war crimes in aviation history. Yet Russia continues to deny involvement to this day, still refusing to extradite those responsible or pay any reparations for the awful tragedy. A Colorado man named Wayne Watson developed a rare and irreversible lung condition known as popcorn lung after years of eating and inhaling the buttery fumes from multiple bags of microwave popcorn every day. The artificial butter flavoring contained diacetyl, a toxic chemical that can scar and destroy airways over time. In 2012, a jury awarded him $7.2 million after ruling that the popcorn maker failed to warn consumers of the dangers. Doctors said his lungs had deteriorated so badly that they resembled those of an industrial worker exposed to chemical vapors for years, all because of his daily snack habit. In Addo Elephant National Park, South Africa, a lioness named Josie went blind around age 12, likely from untreated eye disease such as cataracts or glaucoma. In the wild, that's almost always a death sentence since lionesses rely on vision to hunt and avoid threats. But instead of abandoning her, her 2 adult daughters stayed by her side for the next 5 years. They guided her using contact calls, flanked her while moving so she wouldn't walk into danger, and shared their kills so she could eat despite being unable to hunt. Thanks to her daughters, she survived like this until about age 17, which is already near the upper limit of a wild lion's lifespan. 2008, on a beach in Montauk, Long Island, New York, a bloated, hairless carcass washed ashore with no clear identifying features, quickly dubbed the Montauk Monster. The body was already in an advanced state of decomposition, likely causing the loss of fur and the distorted shape of the head and limbs. As photos spread online, some speculated it was an escaped or discarded experiment from the nearby Plum Island, home to a government animal disease research facility, or something connected to rumored labs in Montauk. Wildlife experts said it was most likely a raccoon or dog altered by decay and water exposure, which can strip fur and change how the skull appears. No official identification was ever confirmed, and the body disappeared shortly after being photographed, leaving the Montauk Monster unresolved and open to speculation. In April of 2023, 22-year-old Mercedes Vega vanished after parking her car in the garage of her Tempe, Arizona apartment complex. Hours later, her body was discovered in the backseat of a burning vehicle miles away in the desert. Investigators later found her blood in the parking garage, proof she'd been attacked there before being taken and left to die. The autopsy revealed she'd been beaten, shot, and had bleach poured down her throat, and that she was still alive when the fire was started, ultimately dying from burns and smoke inhalation. For almost a year, the case remained unsolved until police arrested 22-year-old Sincere Hayes, linking him to the torturous murder. However, authorities believe more suspects were involved, leaving the Vega family tormented by the thought that others who helped burn Mercedes alive may still be free. Just last week, 26-year-old Bethany McGee was riding the Blue Line in Chicago when a stranger walked up, poured a flammable liquid on her, and set her on fire. Police say 50-year-old Lawrence Reed didn't say a word before igniting her, then chased her through the train car as she burned and screamed. She soon stumbled out of the train with devastating, life-threatening burns while other commuters simply watched in horror. Reed was arrested minutes later and hit with federal terrorism charges, and that's when the most infuriating details began to surface. Court records show he'd been arrested at least 72 times over 3 decades, including assaults, arson, attacks on social workers, and other violent charges, yet was still out on electronic monitoring at the time of the attack. Prosecutors even revealed he had a pending aggravated battery case from earlier this year for attacking a hospital employee, showing a pattern of escalating violence that no one managed to stop. Bethany's friends later described her as a gentle, soft-spoken woman, an honor student, an animal lover, and someone who greeted everyone with kindness, making the randomness and brutality of the attack even harder to comprehend. The case has sparked national outrage over how someone with a rap sheet that long was free to carry out such a horrific attack, while Bethany remains in critical condition. While preparing for his Joker role in Suicide, Jared Leto tried so hard to be edgy that he terrified his own castmates. He reportedly mailed them a dead pig, bullets, pornographic objects, and even a live rat. Some actors also claimed he sent used condoms, though Leto denied this, but multiple sources insist the gifts were so revolting that people genuinely felt unsafe around him. Despite all of his extreme method acting, most of Leto's scenes didn't even make the final movie, and when it finally came out, fans and critics agreed his Joker was one of the worst interpretations ever put on screen. In 1937, 20-year-old Patricia Douglas was hired for what she thought was a film job, only to be taken to a booze-filled MGM party where she was forced to drink and brutally raped by a salesman inside a car. Instead of taking hush money, she did the unthinkable for the era. She filed a lawsuit against MGM, publicly accusing the studio of covering up the crime. But she would find out the hard way that MGM was untouchable. They paid off witnesses, falsified medical records, smeared her as a drunken prostitute, stalked her, and blacklisted her from Hollywood. The case was dismissed, the press mocked her, and her life was completely destroyed. Patricia vanished from the public eye, and Hollywood buried her story for nearly 70 years, until the truth was finally uncovered after she died in 2003. In the 90s, top American figure skaters Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding were big-time rivals of the sport. This was taken to the extreme when Kerrigan came off the ice during a practice session in 1994 and was whacked in the right knee with a baton by an assailant who fled the scene. A week after the assault, the attacker was identified as a hitman who was hired by Tanya Harding's ex-husband, Jeff Gillooly. He was apparently trying to put Kerrigan out of commission so that his former lover would have an easier path to qualifying for the '94 Olympics. The hitman had apparently attempted to break Kerrigan's femur but only badly bruised it. Despite the injury, Kerrigan went on to qualify for the Olympics 2 months later, earning herself a silver medal while Harding came in 8th. Harding was eventually stripped of her previous national championship title and banned from competing in U.S. figure skating for life. In 2023, 6 Mississippi cops who called themselves the Goon Squad stormed into a home without a warrant after a neighbor complained about 2 black men staying with a white woman. What followed was hours of torture straight out of a nightmare. The officers tased the men, forced them to strip, and poured milk, alcohol, and chocolate syrup over their bodies while taunting them with racial slurs. They made them crawl on the floor, threatened to sexually assault them, and even forced them to shower together at gunpoint. The ordeal finally ended after one officer shoved a gun into Michael Jenkins' mouth and pulled the trigger, shattering his jaw but somehow not killing him. To cover it up, the squad planted drugs and filed false reports, but the truth eventually came out and all 6 were sentenced to decades in prison. While serving a life sentence for murder, Rocky Beeman brutally murdered a fellow inmate who was serving a life sentence for essaying a 10-year-old girl. But despite this, Beeman was later given a child rapist as his cellmate, who he proceeded to brutally murder as well. He said he resented sex offenders and that killing them gave him, quote, "the best feeling I've had in a long time." He also said the only way to stop him from killing them was to execute him. Beeman was eventually sentenced to death, but on death row in 2020. Grady Stiles Jr. was born in 1937 with a rare genetic condition known as ectrodactyly, which gave him claw-like hands and feet. He became a circus performer under the name Lobster Boy, but was known to be a viciously abusive alcoholic in person. In 1978, he was convicted of murdering his daughter's fiancé on the day before their wedding. He openly confessed to the murder but wasn't sent to prison since no state institution had the resources for an inmate with his condition. Stiles continued to perform until 1992 when he was murdered by a hitman hired by his wife and son. In 2002, Pennsylvania mother Brenda Heist completely disappeared after dropping her 2 kids off at school. 11 years later, she was found living with a group of homeless people in Key West, Florida. Investigators found out she was upset about an upcoming divorce and wanted to completely abandon her life as she knew it. Brenda survived by living under bridges and eating scraps of food until she got tired of running and decided to turn herself in. Her family wanted nothing to do with her since they thought she'd been dead for years, and her ex-husband was even treated as a suspect for her supposed murder. Just last year, 16-year-old Marie Antoinette Coutillo tragically died after her phone fell into the bathtub while she was on a call with her friend. She'd been charging her phone while using it and apparently dropped it in the water at some point, resulting in her electrocution. Marie was eventually found unresponsive by her parents and rushed to the hospital, but doctors were unable to save her. In 2013, a young Japanese man began slithering on his parents' floor and acting erratically, claiming he had become a snake. His father then spent the next 2 days violently headbutting and biting him to, quote, drive out the snake that had possessed him. The man eventually died from blunt force trauma. In 2017, Minnesota woman Mona Lisa Perez killed her boyfriend by shooting him in the chest through an encyclopedia at point-blank range. Apparently, they were trying to make a viral YouTube video and didn't expect the bullet to penetrate the book. Just last month, an AI chatbot convinced a Belgian man to take his own. Concerned about climate change, he apparently mentioned the idea of sacrificing himself so that the AI bot could save the Earth. Instead of dissuading him, the bot encouraged him to act on his dark thoughts so they could, quote, live together as one person in paradise. A 28-year-old Malaysian woman went viral after pregnancy caused her to develop such severe acne and facial swelling that she appeared to age decades overnight. Hormonal surges left her skin red, inflamed, and scarred to the point of being nearly unrecognizable. While most women only develop mild breakouts or dark patches during pregnancy, her extreme case showed how brutally the body can sometimes react to carrying a child. Dumping ashes at Disney parks is so common that staff have secret code words like white powder alert or code grandma, prompting custodial crews to vacuum up the human remains using HEPA filters. Holy Land, USA in Waterbury, Connecticut was once a popular religious theme park that drew thousands of families until its closure in the 1980s, after which it fell into decay. In July of 2010, the abandoned site became the setting for tragedy when 16-year-old Chloe Ottman was strangled to death right underneath the park's giant cross by 19-year-old Francisco Cruz after rejecting his sexual advances. Cruz hid her body on the property, later confessed, and was sentenced to 55 years in prison, forever tying the park's crumbling ruins to one of Connecticut's darkest crimes. Carlos Haffy Rodriguez was ejected through a windshield in a drug-fueled crash as a teenager, smashing his skull so badly that surgeons had to remove the entire upper half of it, leaving his brain covered only by skin. Incredibly, he survived without any severe cognitive damage, but went on to rack up arrests for drugs, arson, and other crimes, his caved-in head becoming one of the internet's most infamous mugshots. Here's a photo of tobacco company CEOs declaring under oath that nicotine is not addictive. The moment became infamous when internal documents later revealed that tobacco executives had known for decades about nicotine's highly addictive properties and had even manipulated nicotine levels in cigarettes to enhance dependency. In 18th century Europe, the wealthy often devoured sugar with no real dental care, rotting their teeth into black stumps that often fell out. To keep up appearances, they wore dentures, not wooden as legend claims, but often filled with real human teeth. These were bought from the poor, pulled from slaves or prisoners, or scavenged from battlefields, sometimes still bloody from fallen soldiers. With no concept of sterilization, they could carry infections, even syphilis, into the wearer's mouth. In advanced cases, the disease could slowly eat away at the face, collapsing the nose and leaving a grotesque hollow mask where features used to be. A 43-year-old man named Jason Vukovic, who was sexually assaulted as a boy, used an online sex offenders registry to track down pedophiles and beat them with a hammer. He was sentenced to 23 years in prison for multiple first-degree assault charges. Japanese death row inmates are not told the date of their execution. They wake up each day wondering if today might be their last. The 1902 St. Pierre volcanic eruption killed all 35,000 people in the nearby town except for one man. He only survived because he was the worst prisoner in town and lived deep in a solitary confinement cell. Actor Barkhad Abdi only received $65,000 for his award-winning role in the movie Captain Phillips. After production, he returned to selling mobile phones at his brother's shop in a Minneapolis mall. Dwayne Johnson's beard in the movie Hercules was made out of the testicle hair of a yak. Actress Tammy Lynn Leppert, who played a small role in the movie Scarface, disappeared soon after filming. She hasn't been seen nor heard from since 1983, when she was only 18 years old. Paranormal Activity had a budget of only $15,000 but made nearly $200 million at the box office. During the first screening, people started walking out, and studio executives thought that the movie was bombing. They later learned that the viewers were leaving because they were too scared to continue watching. Elvis had a pet chimpanzee named Scatter that drank beer and whiskey and pulled clothes off of women. During parties, he would randomly bite guests and throw his poo all over the house. Elvis's friend Lamar Fike once electrocuted Scatter with a cattle prod after being so fed up with his erratic behavior. But Scatter's death was ultimately caused by a housemaid who poisoned him after the chimp pulled her wig off and bit her in the face. In 1946, highly respected World War II veteran Isaac Woodard was honorably discharged. Just hours later, while still in uniform, he was viciously attacked by a group of South Carolina police officers. Isaac was left permanently blind and claimed it was all because he said yes to a police officer instead of yes, sir. Connecticut gallery owner Fernando Alvarez was arrested after dropping a 10-foot-long, 800-pound sculpture of a heroin spoon in front of Purdue Pharma's headquarters. He says he plans to gift more spoons to other drug companies as well as to politicians and doctors. At 89 years old, Alice and Ellen Kessler, the iconic twin performers who spent decades dancing in perfect sync, chose to die the same way they lived, side by side. On November 17, 2025, the twins underwent a medically assisted inside their home near Munich, a procedure they had planned, consented to, and carried out themselves, using life-ending medication supplied legally through Germany's right framework. Police found no signs of foul play, a doctor and a lawyer were involved, and officials said the decision was well considered with no evidence of crisis or coercion. Assisted's been legal in Germany since a landmark 2020 ruling that affirmed a person's constitutional right to a self-determined as long as the act is voluntary and self-administered. After a lifetime of shared stages, shared fame, and shared identity, the Kessler twins made one final synchronized exit, even requesting that their ashes be placed in the same urn. In 2010 in Philadelphia, federal agents and local authorities raided a clinic run by Kermit Gosnell, initially suspecting it was operating as a pill mill. What they found inside was far more horrific than illegal prescriptions. Investigators reported a pervasive stench, filthy conditions, and blood-stained equipment left uncleaned. The clinic was described as so unsanitary that several agents said they felt physically ill while searching it. As the investigation expanded, it was revealed that Gosnell had been performing late-term abortions under dangerous conditions, often far outside legal limitations. According to testimony, babies were killed by severing their spinal cords. Untrained staff were heavily involved in procedures, and essential medical standards were ignored. Authorities also found fetal remains scattered throughout the clinic, including in a freezer, jars, bags, and plastic jugs. The grand jury later described the place as a baby charnel house. In 2013, Gosnell was convicted of multiple counts of first-degree murder, including the deaths of the born alive, as well as involuntary manslaughter in the death of one of his patients. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. 20-year-old Ukrainian OF model Maria Kovalchuk had been missing for 10 days until she was recently found severely injured and dumped on the side of the road in Dubai. She disappeared after telling her friends she was invited to a Dubai hotel party by two men who said they were representatives of the modeling business, and her loved ones became worried when she didn't return home on her scheduled flight 2 days later. Maria was initially thought to be dead when she was found laying on the side of the road with severe injuries including a broken spine and multiple broken limbs. She was rushed to the hospital and immediately required 4 surgeries to save her life. A police investigation revealed that she reportedly sustained the injuries after entering a restricted construction site by herself and falling from a height. However, Maria's family have disputed this account, believing that the construction site story is a cover-up for something darker. According to reports, the model currently can't speak but is expected to eventually recover.